Alright, Rabbi, say welcome. I'm starting Maseches Tamid. Maseches Tamid is known as the Shiur Masechta. In yeshivas, they look to Bacham to do a Siyum. You can make a Siyum, you can make a Siyum, or Bechal looks for a Siyum. Pesach, 2 days before Pesach, I have to make a Siyum. What do you choose? You choose Maseches Tamid, and then what you do is you just go read through, and you look at the Rashi, and it's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? What happened to Rashi over here? So we decided we're going to do Maseches Tamid. Also, it's only 6-7 weeks until the summer, and then we'll. Shavuos is actually on a Monday, so we're going to do that Shiur on Wednesday. Because of time constraints, we're going to have to do that on Wednesday. And Tamid. What is Maseches Tamid? Maseches Tamid is a continuation of the Masechta beforehand, which is Me'ilah, I believe, right? Which is Me'ilah, continues into Kinim. No, Kinim is part of it. Me'ilah, Kinim, Tamid. So there's a few Masechtas at the end that are part of Me'ilah. So, interestingly, we don't really reach Tamid ever. And like we'll see the Me'ilah as the beginning, as an intro to Maseches Tamid, the Me'ilah wrote, and this is in the paper that I gave out, paper that I printed, the Me'ilah, Menachem ben Shloimeh HaMe'ili, he was called the Me'ilah. He lived from 1249 until 1316. He lived in Provence, which is in France somewhere. He was called Don Vidal Salomon. I was also nicknamed that, and he was Mefarsh Talmud in the Mikra. And the Me'ilah basically takes and summarizes the Gemara on most Masechtas. He has a pirush and summarizes the Gemara. He writes like this: Om Menachem Shloimeh Beis Meiri. So Menachem Shloimeh said, "The Maseches Tamid Maseches Midas are part of Seder Kodashim." Says the Meiri, "Va'ani hurgalti belimudam." Apparently, the Meiri ran over Shas many times, and he says that I got used to, whenever I reached Tamid, I got used to Lekal Maseder Moed, that I conclude in Seder Moed after Maseches Shkolim. And basically he says like this: I already wrote in the beginning of my Pirush of Meiri on Shas that the minhag was that Tamidim would only learn 3 Masechtas. Shtadli mak v'shloishes hasdarim adi levad would only learn 3 Masechtas. Atzaloima Moed Nashim Nzik. Moed is where Chagiga, Mekota, and Tainis, Megillah, all the beautiful Masechtas. Nashim Talmidei Chacham would learn because it has applicable halachas, Gitin, Kiddushin, etc. Ksubas, Nezikin, Babakamba, Metzia, and so on and so forth. These are Gemaras that had actual halachas that you can apply on a day-to-day basis. So these are the only 3 Siddharim that he learned. The Shloisha and the Shalom, the 3 other Siddharim, Kodashim, Zoim, and Taharis, Nezavim, Aziva, Muchletes, no one looks at them B'chlal. Only a few people look at them and learn. So he says in the next paragraph, we're going to go quickly, he says in the next paragraph that the Go'ainim saw a need to learn some of the Gemara in those Masechtas as needed. For example, Chulin is in Kodashim, and Chulin is learned because Chulin includes many halachas of Shchita, it includes halachas of Taroivas, Os Isavaheta, includes Basavachalaf. So they learned some of the Chulin, and they learned Maseches Nida for obvious reasons. So the Meir says, Gamanini Meshach also went after their minhag that I am going to learn Tamid because of a certain need. Technically, you wouldn't need Tamid. Tamid doesn't mean anything for us today. It speaks about the Kabbalah Tamid. It speaks about how the avoiding Beis Hamikdash happened. It's not applicable for today. We unfortunately don't have Beis Hamikdash. And he says, I put Maseches Chala, when I learned certain things in Maseches Chala, I put it Acha Maseches Pesach, Rishon. Psachim, according to the Meiri, according to some other meforshim, the Gemara Psachim is split in 2. Perek Aleph Beis Gimel Dalet and Yud Aleph Psachim is one Masechta called Pesach Rishon. Perek Hey Vav Zayin Ches Tes is considered Pesach Sheni. It's not talking about the Pesach Sheni and the Pesach Rishon there, but it was split into 2. Aleph Psachim was actually the 5th Perek according to him. In any case, and I put Chalav, which is in Seder Zohar, I put by Pesach Rishon. Mikvahs, which is some Taharas, I put by Nida because it's connected to Nida. And also now, in regardless of Tamid and what follows Tamid, which is Midas, I also did the same thing. Here is the piece that I really wanted to read. Even though nowadays Tamid and Midas has no practical application for today. There's nothing that you can learn, technically, there's nothing you can learn from Tamid and Midas that applies to your day-to-day life. I felt a different reason. I was compelled to include the inyanim of what we're going to learn in Tamid in Seder Moed. Why? I saw truthfully in your name some of the knowledge that we're going to learn in Tamid and in Midas is actually important in order to learn certain Masechtes in Seder Moed. And he says more so. He says, interesting, he's certain it's impossible to learn many of the things that are being learned in the other Masechtes and Seder Moed without knowing Tamid and Midas. And therefore, I made a place in Maseches Shkolim and I put the bill of Tamid and Midas after Maseches Shkolim, which is in Moed. In any case, it's very important. The rest he goes on about exactly. He's talking about the summary of the Masech of the Plakim. But in any case, it is important to learn his Masechtes technically if you want to learn certain Masechtes in Moed, like Yuma, etc. The lashon of this Mishnah, so Nagdamas Mishnayis of the Rambam writes a line about Tamid, and this we brought it down. V'hevi achem ila Maseches Tamid. After Mili brought Tamid, v'niuches b'achroni, left it at the end. B'shvil she'ein bo dibu lo el chachma v'lo el isavat. There is nothing that can be learned, not in the chachma wisdom wise, and not anything aloches for isan hetet, allowed or not allowed. Elo simple. It's a story. The Gemara is literally telling us a story. That's what Rambam says. Shehu oimer, that the Gemara keeps saying, how did they do the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash? How did they do the Korban Tamid? And actually, if you look into the Mishnah, the Gemara, as we're going to go on and learn, you're going to see that the Mishnah is written in past tense. It's written always hoyu, the word, not like above and zikim, which is now, or Shnai Moichas in Metalis, two people are holding a talis, which is now. This is everything in past. So that being said, let's start Tamid. Now Tamid is obviously talking about the Korban Tamid that was brought twice a day, in the morning and the night. Read it by Kabbanas, twice a day. But the Mishnah is actually going to start with something before Korban Tamid. Nowhere in Shas is it discussed what happened during the night in the Beis Hamikdash. So the first thing we're going to discuss what happened at night. We're going to start with guarding the Beis Hamikdash. Beis Hamikdash is a holy place, was a wealthy place, and it needed to be guarded, but not because of Ganovim, because all the meforshim say that b'mokem ashidas enanias, in a place of wealth, you cannot pretend to be an ani. If someone steals a vessel, a golden vessel, Beis Hamikdash, just replace it. You're not going to hire a guard to guard some golden vessels if that Beis Hamikdash is that wealthy. That's not what the idea is. And the guarding was based, and everything was closed at night. The guarding was, some machlokes where they had guards during the day as well, but the guarding was mainly at night, and the guarding was an honor guard. That's simply an honor guard, like you see by kings and what's it called in England. They with a sword, they're not going to repel any attacks on the Buckingham Palace, but they are. It's an honor guard. Lahavdil elef havdil. That's an honor guard. So Beis Hamikdash also need an honor guard. The Gemara is going to assess where we see that from. Zag the Mishnah. B'shloisha makayim is in three places in the Beis Hamikdash. HaKehanim shoymim Beis Hamikdash. The Kehanim are guarding the Beis Hamikdash. Beis Aftinas, in the house of Aftinas. Beis Hanitzotz and Beis Hamoiket. The Beis Hanitzotz and Beis Hamoiket. Aftinas was called Beis Aftinas. This is the place where they prepared the Ktoides. They prepared Ktoides in the Beis Aftinas. It was placed on the side here. Oh. Turn that on. Beis Haftinas is right over by the top. Lishkas Beis Haftinas. Right on top, you can see. Shalamayim, Lishkas Beis Haftinas. They prepared the Ktoides they prepared. It was a certain way to prepare it. A guy by the name of Haftinas was a professional. He knew exactly the combination of the Ktoides, exactly how to make it. And that's why it's called after his name. So it's in the gate is called Shalamayim. And inside there's a lishka, which is a chamber, and the kohen stood in the lishka's Beis Hamikdash. Next to it, you see a mikvah. The kohen gadol's mikvah is right next to it. But the one kohen was standing and guarding the door over there. The other place is called Beis Hamikdash. Why is it called Beis Hamikdash? So this is actually, before we continue, the Rashi here is not Rashi. We don't know who this is. In the first, right on bottom, it says Rashi was meforshim something, so we know that this is not Rashi. We don't know who this is. He writes, I don't know why it's called Beis Hamikdash. ה-א-כ right away says, look in the Beis Sheva and other places. Beis Hamikdash was called because it was open on one side, and it was like a porch, and the sun shone in, and it looked beautiful. It was sparkly. It was cool. That's why it's called Beis Hamikdash. Mitzvah as in sparkly. The next one was Beis Hamikdash. It was a big house at 4 chambers. Half of it was kodesh, was inside the azara. Half of it was holy. The other half was choil, was not holy. And they guarded inside the choil part. And the Mishnah is going to discuss exactly what happened. So they had these three places. Why was it called Beis Hamikdash? Because the Moiked is fire. They actually had fires raging in that room to keep the Kahanim warm. Okay, so he says, Beis Haftinas and Beis Hanitzos. So the top one over there, Beis Haftinas and Beis Hanitzos, the most might of gate and door. They had Hoya Aliyos. It was a second floor. It was basically a room, but it was a double decker. There was a second floor. Horoivim, the young Kehanim, called Roivim, and the meforshim says we see Navio, that young people are called Navio. So the very young Kehanim, Shoim, they are guarding it. So how old were the young Kehanim? There's a machlokas. Some people say they're younger than 13 years old. From 13 years old, you can do the avodah. So the people that were able to do the avodah didn't want to be guards, and younger than 13, there were guards. Some of the meforshim say it doesn't make sense. Younger than 13, you have guards. It's not coveted. It's not honorable for the Beis Hamikdash to have guards. You have very young guards. So they say like this: above 13, you technically can do the avodah, but what actually happened until age 20, they wouldn't allow them to do the avodah. They have observed. They have to learn all different things. So from age 13 till 20 is when they were the guards. These are the Leivim are called the age 13 till 20.
Didn't they need like 5 years of internship or something?
Right. So what exactly those 5 years were, I don't know. But until age 20, didn't even let them get close to it. They were just observing. And one of the things they were able to do was to guard the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, so either these are youngsters less than 13 or you 13 to 20. Shom, they would guard in the aliyos on the second floor of the Beis Haftinas and Beis Hanitzos. And why second floor? Because the azara is kodesh, the azara is holy, but only the azara itself is holy. A second floor is not considered holy anymore. Aliyah is learning kacha, that's not kodesh. And therefore, if a kohen wants to sit down, we know halacha that in the azara, no one is allowed to sit besides a king of the house of David, Malchus David. So therefore, they made a second floor, and now they can sit and rest and sleep or whatever they need to do. Yeah, the higher up. So basically, the Kehanim, they made a second floor. So it's Beis Haftinas, Beis Hanitzos, or Yalias, and the Leivim Shem. Beis Hamikdash, the Beis Hamikdash was a big house. Kippah, it had a dome. Some people say the dome was inside. Some people say on top. Beis Gadol Hoyam, take away the hay. Beis Gadol, it was a big house, which, as you see in the picture, there's 4. Don't see the picture anymore. There's 4 chambers in there. Mukaf Loivdin Shel Evan. They had stones inside the Beis Hamikdash. Ziknei Beis Av Yeshenim Sham. The elders of the Beis Av slept there. Umafteiches Hazar B'Yadam. The keys of the Hazar were in their hands. So actually, they weren't keys. They weren't holding the keys, but see that this is what it looked like. There's fires inside, people sleeping here, and then steps here. They slept on the steps. See a better picture over here. That these rocks. This is you can see that's so clear, but here's like a hole. There was a little thing. It was an amma wide. They had a ring on top, and they put the keys inside. Can't see this picture so clear. Yeah, here you see it better. Okay, this is the Beis Hamikdash. In other words, this is the Beis Hamikdash. This is where the chamber inside, one of the chambers inside the Beis Hamikdash. In any case, so they slept. They had the keys in that little thing on the ground. Pirchei Kahuna. So the elders slept on the steps, but he saw some people are sleeping on the floor. Who was sleeping on the floor? Pirchei Kahuna. Ish kisosei ba'aretz, the younger kahuna, the younger kahanim slept with their pillow on the floor. Kes is a pillow. Lo yeshenim b'gdei kodesh, they did not sleep in their holy garments in the Abba b'gdei kahuna. Elo hoye poshtin, they would undress and dress their own garments. Umanichnos and tachas Hashem, they put it under the heads. The Gemara is going to say that's not true. They'll put it next to the heads. Umiskasin, because atzmom, they would dress themselves with their own garments, and that's how they would sleep. Okay. What happens? So that's how they would sleep. How the Tamid is going to start? We're going to start that a little bit later. What happens is, if in the middle of the night a kohen became Tamid because he saw an emission, he saw keri. If someone saw an emission, yotzei. Now, when someone sees an emission, he has to go to mikvah, and once he goes to the mikvah, he has to wait until the night comes, Harav Shemesh, so he cannot do any avodah that day. Back it up a second. The Kahanim were split up in 24 mishmaris, 24 guards. Big families were split up basically, and 24 groups of Kahanim were watching the Beis Hamikdash and did the avodah in Beis Hamikdash. Within the 24 groups, it was divided. Each group was divided by 7. That's called Beis Av. It was divided by 7, basically a father's household, and they were named according to whoever the main family is there. So every day of the week, there's another group of Kahanim that did avodah. They came the night before, slept, they woke up in the next morning, and that's when they did the avodah. And the lunar year has about 50 weeks. So it's about 2 weeks a year that each mishmeres had, and within the mishmeres, the group of 7, each one had 2 days in the 2 weeks, and usually it was the same day. So basically, if someone became Tameh, bad luck on him, because now he lost that 1 day that he had that week. He'll have to wait another week to do the avodah. But what should he do? He's in the Beis Hamikdash. So now again, they slept in the choil part, in the not holy part of the Beis Hamikdash. Slept inside here. Half of it was kodesh, half of it was choil. They slept in the choil part because you're not allowed to sleep in the holy part, not to sit and not to sleep. So they slept in the choil part. So what happens is, if someone woke up in the morning or middle of the night and he sees that it was a keli, so here is steps to go down to the base of tefillah. Now whether these were steps or spiral staircase, some people say it's steps, some people say it was spiral staircase.
Nafkamina.
No nafkamina. It's just how you read. This meforshim says that was an amud. There was a pole. She'oilim v'yodin al de gilgul. Gilgul means like you're tumbling around, but this basically go around. Some people say there were steps. So if someone wakes up and sees an emission, so he has to go to mikvah. So in the Beis Hamikdash, right there are steps to go down to the mikvah. So Yoitze goes out, Masiba goes through the tunnels. It goes either under the city or Bida as a place. He had candles burning to see the place. Until he reaches the Beis Tefillah, where you went to Toivel. Now before you go to Tefillah, there's an important halacha we're going to learn. There was a fire burning in the Beis Tefillah just to keep the person warm. And there was a bathroom. It was called Beis Shel Kavod, an honorable bathroom. Why? What's pshat? This honor is Kavod. No, that was. How do you honor another person with a Beis Kisei? So if you found it closed, it was locked. If the door was closed, you would know that someone is inside and let him finish whatever he needs to finish in peace. Pesuach, if it was open, you went by yourself, so that's the honor that we give to one another. Why is it important to have the Beis Hakisa next to Beis Tefillah? For 2 reasons. Number one, the halacha here, we said that he saw a keri, he saw an emission. The halacha is that if you go to mikvah before you use the bathroom, we are worried that when you go to use the bathroom after the mikvah, something is still left in there and makes you tamei. So therefore you have to use the bathroom before. Another halacha is that if a kohen needed to relieve himself in the middle of the avodah, the halacha is you can't just wash ashiyatza and walk out. You actually have to go to mikvah. So therefore, strategically, the place, the Beis Hakisa, the bathroom, right next to the mikvah. You need to relieve yourself, go out, relieve yourself, and then go to the mikvah.
The mikvah was outside. The
mikvah went through a bunch of tunnels. Through here, there were a bunch of tunnels. This guy has a picture of tunnels. I don't know how he has a picture of tunnels.
What do you mean? You went to Kingston Avenue and you got a picture of tunnels.
Right here.
Oh, that's it. That's the one.
Here we have, see the Kahana going But
By the mikveh, the tunnels.
here he has the video.
But the mikveh is in Chol, by the way. The mikveh is in Kodesh or Chol?
Yeah,
No,
Chol.
Chol.
The tunnel leading is a very good video.
So the Kohen Gadol is allowed to leave Kodesh on, let's say, Yom Kippur to go to the mikveh.
No, so the Kohen Gadol's mikveh was on top, inside this. This is for the regular Kohanim. But here, basically, he runs through the tunnels. Somehow he got footage how it goes.
So cool.
And you'll see at the end, he actually out of the bathroom. I don't know if that's how long they
Where's the
were.
mattress?
Let's see at the end.
What? Oh.
Okay, somebody that goes up a bunch of steps now. It's cool. And he'll show you the staircase over here. For some reason, I don't know why. Here's the staircase. And here's the mikvah. There was a fire. Here's the bathroom. And here's the mikvah. Anyways, that's the Beis Hamikdash. So the steps were over here. So you would go there, go to mikvah. You would yodacham. V'tova, v'olo, he goes up and he stops and he dries himself and it's cham and he warms himself up. But he goes back to the Beis Hamikdash. He does not go into the Kodesh part, even though he went to mikvah, because he has to wait till the night. V'yosh, now, what should he do for the rest of the day? He can't do an avoid, he has to wait till the night. So v'yosh v'kahanim sits next to the brothers, the kahanim, until the morning when the doors open up. He leaves the Beis Hamikdash because nothing for him to do. And he has to go back home and do whatever he needs.
So technically, this could happen 10 times throughout the night.
This can happen 10 times throughout the night.
Different
Correct?
Kehanim.
No, to him
Even
himself.
yeah.
Possibly.
But once it happens once, it doesn't make a difference. That's it. As I said, they only have one day a week, 2 weeks of the year they do the avodah. Sorry, 2 days in 2 different weeks of the entire year do they do the avodah, because we split 50 weeks into 24 mishmaras, and each mishmar is split into 7, which means every group only has 1 day a week and it's 2 weeks. So only twice a year does he do the avodah. If he loses one of them because of a kadeh,
Then they would come for the Yontif. They would all.
Yontif they will all do. Yeah, correct.
What door did he walk out?
So here the Beis Hamikdash has a door, Shalach Haba, and he would walk out. The door would open up, and he would walk out. This is already Chayil. This is the Chayil. This is called the Chayil. This is around the Beis Hamikdash, around the entire Beis Hamikdash, and then it would walk out. And here would be. This is technically the Har Hazesim would be there.
Yeah.
Yes, the Har Hazesim. The Koislam Alavi is I believe over.
The moving stick,
here
the
on top.
moving
So
walkway.
it's not the Har Hazesim. Anyways, this is the Arab quarter, I believe for now. There's another picture that puts him on top. Okay, and anyways, now, so forget about this guy. Let's say everything worked out. It's the middle of the night, and one of these guys decide, I want to start with them. One of the first things that happens in Beis Hamikdash. So what's the first thing? Tumas Hadeshen. The Beis Hamikdash has a mizbeach. The mizbeach has korbanos burning. There is ashes there. It piles up, and every day it's a mitzvah in the Torah that says you have to Tumas Hadeshen. You can take down ashes. So Misha Yelotzi Litrim as a mizbeach. Whoever wants to relieve the mizbeach, lift up Deshen from the mizbeach. Mashkim, he would have to wake up early. But Toiva, and goes to the mikveh early. Actually, until the Mamuna comes. Once the Mamuna, the guy in charge of the lottery to find out who is going to be the one that's going to be Zoicha, that's going to have the schus to do the Tumas Hadeshen, once he arrives, you can't waste time anymore. So if you decide, I want to try to go into the lottery, you have to go to mikveh early. So says the Mishnah, the Baal Mishnah says, when does this Mamuna show up? Not all times are the same. Sometimes it comes when the rooster starts doing this thing, yeah. Or Kiyas Ageva could be a person. It was a person that was in charge to waking up the Shalayim, waking up the Beis Hamikdash. So he comes around that time. Oy Samuchloi, closed it, Milfanov and Ma'achlov, never earlier, never later, around that time. But you don't know the exact time. Some meforshim say that's not so true. Throughout the year, you had certain times like Yom Kippur and Yontif that the guy would show up at different times. But the rest of the year, he came pretty much at the same time. What happens is basically you go to mikvah, you toivel, you come back up, the Mamuna shows up. So now the guy in charge of the lottery shows up. He comes. Hamamuna ba. V'dafak alein, he knocks on them. So two meforshim alein is plural. So either it means because when you had to walk in, you had to knock on two doors. You had to knock in on the door of this door and the second door in order to get in. So alein means two doors. Most meforshim say alein means just he woke up the kahanim. They were sleeping in the or they were ready in the market. Open up, I'm here. The lottery guy is here. So he would walk in. V'dafak alein v'heim paschal, and you open the door for him. Amalem, you tell them Misha Toval, whoever was already in mikvah, Yava Yafis should come, and we're going to do the lottery. Hefisu, they made the lottery. Misha Zacha Zacha, whoever was Zoich, the lottery was Zoich. How was the lottery done? We know the lottery was done that they stood in two opinions actually. They stood in a circle. They stood in a circle in the Kodesh part because the lottery is part of Avodah. It has to be done in the holy part of the Beis Hamikdash. So either they stood in a circle, and one of the Kohanim took off his mitznefes, his hat, and the Mamuna, the one in charge, would say a number. The number was greater than the number of Kohanim in the room, and then he would start counting. Then he would start counting, and basically would count, and they would stick out a finger, and one or two fingers, and they would start counting the fingers. Wherever the number stops, that guy was zoiche. Some say that it wasn't a circle, because if there's a circle here, some guy is going to be with his back to the Kodesh HaKodashim, which is not covered. So they did a different type of arrangement. I don't know exactly, it says the word, but I don't know exactly what it means, but a different type of arrangement how they did it. And they did it in the Kodesh. Also because he lifted his mitznefes, he was basically standing without a covering on his head. They didn't do it in the Azada itself, because it's not covered to stand in the Azada without a hat.
Some people say took it off and then
put it back on. All we need to know is where the count started.
How many people were in it?
As many economists they wanted. Whoever was ready.
One person was in it.
Only one person won the schus to do Tumas Hadeshen, and he basically, the Mamuna said, I'm going to count. There's 40 Kohanim here. I'm going to count 50, for example.
That was only later on. Amal used to fight. You have to fight together. Whoever got there first did it, and then there's.
So obviously this is.
So then they implemented the goy.
This is again this whole Mishnah. We said in the beginning. This whole Mishnah is written in the past tense. Beis Hamikdash didn't exist. This was written by the Machlekes who wrote Tamid, which Amar wrote it, but it was definitely, he did not see the Beis Hamikdash, he only wrote what he heard. So what he heard was already at the end, when obviously the Piyus was happening. Okay, so we have this, that the Kahanim are watching in three places. The Mishnah in Midas says that there were 24 guards, 3 Kahanim, and 21 Levim. But now the Gemara is going to try to understand, where does it say in the Torah that the Beis Hamikdash has to be guarded? As we watch. It says clearly in the pasuk, the ones that were choyne, that were resting or living in front of the Mishkan, Keidma, on the Milzach side, the Fnei Oil Moed, in front of the Moed, Mizlacha, again Mizlach, Moshe Lahan, one of Moshe, Aharon, and Aharon's kids. What did they do? Shoymim Mishmeres HaMikdash, the Mishmeres Bnei Yisrael. They are watching the Beis Hamikdash they're watching the Beis Hamikdash, so the Eden shouldn't walk in unannounced or with Tameh. So here we see that there is the concept of Shemitah exists. So the Gemara is going to ask, very good, I understand you need a shoym, but who says 3? And who says that you need to do it in 3 different locations? Amrim, fine, good. Shimu ba'alma ashkachan. We know that we need to watch the Beis Hamikdash, the Mishkan. The next 4 words were deleted, they were mistaken here. Mio masnisin ktani, in our Mishnah, we learned the Mishnah in Midas, that there are 3 locations for the Kahanim. Levim 21. This we don't see the pasuk. Number 1, we don't see that there's 24 locations. We don't see that the Kahanim and Levim did not watch the Beis Hamikdash in the same area. The pasuk says Kahanim, Aharon and Banav, the Levim and the Levim, which is Moshe Rabbeinu, Bahadi Adodik, they're watching in the same place, and we only know one place, and we know that we're together. How do we know that's 3 or 24, and they're all separate? Amrim, Hachgama, this is how they answered. Ve'achoinim, Lifnei HaMishkan, you split the pasuk. There is something called Choinim and something called Shoimnim. The people that are resting is Moshe Rabbeinu. Ve'achoinim Lifnei HaMishkan, Keitman Lifnei Oil Moed, Mizracha, Moshe, period. That's one guard. V'hada, then the pasuk continues and says, Aharon uvanav shoymim mishmeres hamikdash, Aharon v'chad makim uvanav b'shnei mekayim. It says Aharon and Banav basically is separate from Levim. Technically, from now right now the way we learn the pasuk, there's something called choynim, something called shoymim. 2 separate locations. We still don't know that the Kahanim had 3 locations they watched. But the Gemara says, Ahana bechad makim v'adam shtei makomis. That's what the Gemara is going to say, Mimai. How do we know that's actually 3 separate locations?
It's like Moshe is the Levi.
Moshe is the Levi, yeah. So he had 1 location he watched, and Ahana midechsiv, Mimai midechsiv, v'achoinim. He explains now what I said. Midechsiv v'achoinim, uksiv shoymim, choinim l'chud, v'shoym l'chud. So the Gemara asks again, Eima kula b'chad makim, but it doesn't say that they were split in a few locations. They were talking 2 locations, one for the Levim, one for the Kahanim, but who said the Kahanim were separated? Eima kula b'chad makim, l'chudei. So the Gemara, no, loik sal gadaydach ma Moshe. It's just like loik sal gadaydach. It's just like Moshe Rabbeinu. Ma Moshe b'chad makim. Moshe was watching in his own spot. B'chad makim l'chudei. Avar anavana b'chad makim l'chudei. Also, Anaban, each one was in their own space. So that's one way to learn that the Hanan watched in one place, and his 2 sons that he had at that point in his life, the other 2 passed away, watched it somewhere else. Abashi Omar, simple answer. The Sefer Dekot, the Pasuk says 3 times the word Mishmeres, Shoymim, Mishmeres, LeMishmeres. So because it says 3 times watching, they guarded in 3 locations. Now, simple question: is Mishkan, they all guarded it? It says right clear in the Pasuk, Mizdacha. The Mishkan was, had only 1 opening, and the guards were stationed in 3 different locations by that opening right in front. How do we know that this in the Beis Hamikdash they were separated? There were one in the Beis Haftinas, Shara Nitzutz, and Beis Hamikdash. So the simple answer is that the location in Mishkan was only 1 because they only need 1 place. The Mishkan was closed everywhere else. There was only 1 door. But the Beis Hamikdash had either 5 doors, 7 doors, 8 doors, depending on the opinions, different opinions, so they had to put them strategically in different locations. Okay, Zayt Gemara weiter. Next page. Got anything here? No. Zayt Gemara weiter. Beis Haftinas or Beis Hanitzos. The Mishnah says that Beis Haftinas and Beis Hanitzos were a 2-floored complex. They had 2 floors. Ibayilu, did it need to be as tall as 2 floors? Or did it actually have 2 floors? Aliyah's mamish hafa, was it actually 2 floors? Or dilma dahava gvi magbek aliyah was tall like 2 floors? Toshma, come in here. It says in Midos, it says that the shal Shabbat Tzafin, the gate of the Tzafin is Shara Nitzutz. What did it look like? Kiminach Sada was like an open porch. We closed the 3 places and opened the one. And there was another floor built on top. So here we see clearly it was 2 floors. What was the second floor used for? The Kahanim were watching on top. And Levidim on bottom. Had an opening 2 sides. Had an opening to the Choil, to not Kodesh. Okay. Now, in this Mishnah we mentioned an interesting thing, that in the Shal HaNitzutz there were 2 guards on top the Kahanim and on bottom the Levim. How do we know there were 2 guards in the same place? And it says in the pasuk that Aharon, Moshe Rabbeinu told Aharon that you're going to take your brothers Mati Levi and you're going to take them with you and they're going to serve you. They're going to escort you and they're going to serve you. Now, when it comes to escorting and serving, there's 2 ways to do it. You can either be a CEO of a company. When he hires someone to work for him, he doesn't hire him to do the same job that he does. He hires him usually to do something he doesn't want to do, or something that he needs his strength and his abilities. They don't do the same thing. Rebelach, right? They don't have gaboim that give blachas. Rebbe's job is to make give blachas. The Gabe's job is to rip out the money from the guy and kick the guy out when he's done. And that everyone has different gaboim. The Mashalas, and by Rebbe's house, Mashalas doesn't do the same job as the Rebbe. So the pasuk says that he was shasucha, they served him. So the Gemara says, and your avodah, just like Aharon, what was his avodah? It says in this pasuk, Mishayim Mishmeres HaKodesh, they were watching the Beis Hamikdash, the Mishkan. So we love that they'll escort you and they'll serve you. Is by the Secha, and this avodah of guarding. Hakosim Adava. So you say that it's talking about the void of the coin, the guard in the Beis Hamikdash. Maybe you're talking about like a real Mashalas that does a different job. What was the job of the Levim? In the Mishkan, the job was to carry the different kalim, and in the Beis Hamikdash, the job was to sing, to play. Today's Tanya was Right, today's Tanya was that the Alizal said that the Levim will turn to Kahanim, right? V'akahanim halevim, it says in the parentheses in Tanya today. V'akahanim halevim, that the Levim will come Kahanim, and they will actually do the same avodah then. But back then they had their own job. So maybe when it says a guy, a CEO needs someone to help him out, an assistant, and the same thing that Aaron Cohen and his kids had their job, and the Levim did their job to complement the avodah of the Kohen Gadol, but not that they did the same job, but did a different job. Maybe it's talking about their job. So basically they're escorting you and helping you, but they're doing their job. A different pasuk. It says that they will escort you and they'll guard the kelim and all their avodah. This is talking about the avodah of the Levim. So now, if we know that they have that job, we have another pasuk. What am I doing with this pasuk that they are escorting you and serving you? We're talking about the avodah of the Kohen Gadol. So now we see that the Levim and the Kahanim are guarding the Beis Hamikdash together. Okay, because the Kahanim were of more elite status, they guarded on top, Olecho, the Levim Mata, and the Levim stood on the bottom. So in the Beis Haftinas and the Beis Nitzutz, they were Levim on bottom, and the Kahanim were on top.
Were the Kahanim on top because also
Shmira, it says that
no, but because it wasn't, it's not holy.
Correct.
Right?
Also correct. And the Levim, you'll see later.
So
the
they
Levim,
could nap if they wanted and whatever.
Yeah, the Levim, they weren't supposed to be caught napping, but if they want to sit down, they can sit down. The Levim stood at that gate, but towards the outside. They didn't stand inside the Azal for the same reason. If they want to sit down, they can sit down. Okay, the Gemara goes weiter. The Beis Hamikdash Kippah was they had a dome. Well, by his Godlan, it was a big house. In the house, we said there were 4 chambers inside the house. And basically, we said this is not mentioned. In the Mishnah before, we mentioned that Beis Hanitzutz and Beis Haftinas had 2 floors, and therefore there was a Kohen on top and a Levi on bottom. Change the setting. The Kohen on bottom, Levi on bottom. But in the Beis Hamikdash, it does not say. It only says has a kippah. It does not say that there was 2 floors. It doesn't mention if there was a Levi in there as well. So the Gemara asks, did the Beis Hamikdash only have 1 guard? For the Gemara, was there only 1 guard? The Beis Hamikdash. Let me ask you a question. There were 2 doors in Beis Hamikdash. Echad pasuach lechel, ve'echad pasuach hazara. There were 2 doors. One of them was open to the Azara, and one of them was open to the chel, the thing around the Beis Hamikdash. So if there's 2 doors, you need to have 2 guards. Each door needs a guard. Vidabari explains it that the door to the Azara, he agrees that there's 2 doors, but it says the door to the Azara was actually another door inside. I don't know if you ever saw in I've seen in Europe often. There's a massive door, and old homes have these massive doors. It's very hard to move, and inside that massive door there's a cutout, another small door. When they need to put wagons through or cars through, etc., they would open up the big massive doors. And if it's someone people need to go through, they open up a small door. I've seen it in Vienna often. I've seen it in Brno, the big gate door. It was a massive door. They had a small door opening up. So the Buddha says, the door to the Azara was massive. What's it called? Yosifus writes that the door needed 20 people to open and close. Mm-hmm. So that door made a lot of noise. Open and close made a lot of noise. And Rabbi Yehuda says that they actually used a small door to get in and out unnoticed. Why? They had a small door. Someone would go into the Azal in the middle of the night to spy on the Kahanim to see if anyone's sleeping. And if they found him sleeping, they would give him a gesunte klep. Yeah, they would burn his clothing and
Levim for the
guard. It doesn't make a difference. Whoever was in guard, they couldn't be found sleeping. So if you have massive door and you open a door and it makes a lot of noise, there's no point of coming in unnoticed. So the Buddha says there was a small door to get in there. But in any case, there were 2 doors, one to the chel and one to the azal. So 2 doors needs 2 guards. So why does it say here? We don't see in the Mishnah there were 2 guards there. Because the 2 doors were either next to each other or opposite of each other. One shomer is enough. The Davi lahacha, the Davi lahacha would look right, he would look left, and you can guard both doors. Okay, then we said that we had saw in the picture before that in the Beis Hamikdash there were these stones that were cut out. There were stones cut out. Loivdin minor. What are these loivdin? And for the Gemara, gizlosa that stops on. These are cut out stones. So they basically would place to build the Beis Hamikdash, and in order to make steps for the Kohanim to go in, to go up on a level and then sleep, they cut out stones. So here's a big question: you are not allowed to cut anything in the Beis Hamikdash. You're not allowed to use any metal or any type of machinery to in the Beis Hamikdash. The salku, what was the gizos that it stops on? These are the cut out stones. The salki ball it stops on. They would go step on this to go sleep. Would they cut stones in the Beis Hamikdash? Because right now we have the opinion they just put the stones in, and then once it was in, they started cutting them out and making these steps. It says, the full pasuk says, when the house was built, Evan Shleima was a complete stone, Masonivna, Umakovos Vagazin, Kolkli Bazin, any type of machinery, tools, iron, metal, Lo Nishma Bais Benosi, you did not hear in the Beis Hamikdash. So basically, you're not allowed to cut out the stones in the Beis Hamikdash. Abaya answers, no, the Metakni or Maisim, they would first cut them out into different sizes, and that's how they would bring them in. Avne Zutasi, they would bring smaller stones, Avne Avnesi, and larger stones. It says in Pasuk, Avne Es Amas, they had cut out stones, 10 Amas, the Avne Shmoyna Amas, and stones that are 8 Amas. 10 Amas and 8 Amas, and that's how they would bring them in, and that's how they would place them. If you visit the Shalayim and go in the tunnels, so I visited many years ago, at the end of that tour, at the end of the tour, you actually see the place. You see, almost like as if they left in the middle of cutting stones. That the Churban happened. You see stones cut out already in shape, sitting there with the rollers. You know how they would have oxen schlepping up the stones on those rollers. You see them there and sitting on the rollers. It's actually pretty amazing. I don't know if you guys saw it when you were there, but in the Minotach when I was there, some 20 or something years ago, all the way at the end, it shows that. And basically, that's how they would cut it out. So there's a machlokes actually whether you can use any metal or a machinery to cut out stones in the Beis Hamikdash even outside. This goes according to the opinion you're allowed to. There's another opinion that says that no, absolutely not. You cannot use anything even outside the Beis Hamikdash. If you any building material in the Beis Hamikdash had to be done somehow naturally. And according to that opinion, they had a shamir worm that would split open the rocks. They would put them down and exactly would split open in the right measurements. But in any case, they were cut outside and then brought inside according to our opinion. Okay, so now what were these steps used for? Zikna Beis Av Yishenim Sham. The elders. So the Beis Av we said was the division of the 24 groups of Kohanim was divided by 7. They were called the Beis Av. The veterans of the Beis Av would sleep on the top of the step, and the younger one would sleep on the floor. So why would they sleep on the floor or on the steps? Ve'amai la'ayli mitas, bring in beds. A simple answer. Lav oilach ala la'yula mitas Beis Hamikdash is not. You don't put beds in a shul or in a Beis Hamikdash. Pirchei kahuna ish kasusa ba'alat. But the younger ones of the kahuna, the younger kahanim, they would sleep with the kasusa, with their pillow on the floor. Why is it? First, the Mishnah says that the younger ones would be guarding on top of the Beis Haftinas and Beis Hamitzvos, and here calls them Pirchei Kahuna. Amri, so they answered in Hasam the Lemot Lemeva. The Loivim we're talking about very young ones. They're not working. They can't do the avodah. Either they're younger than 13, like we said, or they're between 13 and 20. Avodah Kol Loivim calls them young ones. And he also calls them Loivim Asab Pshat. Loivim is like Loivim Kashos, someone that throws an arrow, which is a guard. And their sole job in the Beis Hamikdash was to guard the Beis Hamikdash, so they were called Loivim. But here, Hacha, the Motelahu, Lemevad Avodah, they already reached an age where they can do the Avodah in Beis Hamikdash. Called the Pirchei, they were called Pirchei. Why were they called Pirchei? Pirchei means flying. Why were they called flying? Because they were very young, ambitious, and hot-blooded. And they did avodah so swiftly, so quick, it almost seemed like they're flying. That's what I call Pirchei Kahuna. So So that's why they call them first loivim. These are the younger ones that don't do the avodah, and the pirchikun are the ones that are ready to do the avodah. Tanan Hossam. So now we're going to go through a little bit more details. Exactly where was the guard? Where were the stationed the guards? I'll see how far we got to this. Tanan Hossam. Shloshim Mekayim Kahanim Shem Beis Hamikdash. This is the Mishnah in Hamidash, that in 3 locations the Kahanim guarded the Beis Hamikdash. Beis Haftinas, Beis Hanitzes, Beis Hamikdash, like we said in the Mishnah. And now we are adding the Halavim Bechav Al Mekayim. The Levim guarded in 21 locations. So it divides. Hey al Hey Shalabais. 5 of them were on the 5 doors of the Halabais. Okay. So we have 1, 2. So this is according to the Shitta. There's many more doors, but according to the Shitta, there was 5 doors.
It's not the Harabais.
Oh, this is the Halabais. No, this is the Halabais. This is the Beis Hamikdash.
Outside is the Harabais.
No, the outside.
1 second. No, but they were watching inside here. Halabais means are the doors from the Halabais into the Chel, into the Beis Hamikdash. So according to the Sapin, there were 5. According to here, there's actually shittas. There's a 7 or 8. So here I don't know what's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, there's another shit that there's 13 doors.
But it's not Kodesh.
No, it's not Kodesh. No. So 5 al-hesh shalabais and the 5 gates of the halabais. Dalet, 4 of them. So 9 al-dal pinoisav on the 4 corners inside the Beis Hamikdash. 4 corners. Sorry, in the Ezras Nashim, I believe. Mibifnim. Those were regarded inside. This wasn't a Mokim Kodesh. They can sit down. They can, if they want, they can sit down. So this they guarded from inside. Hey al Hesha Azal. The other 5 were the 2 gates of the Azala. V'dal al dal penoisav, and another 4 were on the corner. So now we have 18 guards. And mibachutz, and regarding not inside the Azala, they were standing outside the Azala. The Gemara is going to say, because again, you can't sit inside the Azala. If he gets tired, he wants to sit down, he'll have to be outside the Azala. Echad belishkas hakalban. One of them was stationed in the lishka of the kalban, which is pointed out here. Find out where exactly it is. The lishkas kalban is one of the chambers inside. Echad belishkas hakalban. Echad belishkas hakalban. Huh?
It's in the Beis Hamikdash, I think.
Okay, could be. Could be that's the Lishkas Atloim that they had the Kavanah there. Could be, I don't remember now. The Echad B'Lishka P'Loiches, and one of them was a Lishka P'Loiches. Now, Lishka P'Loiches, we don't know what it is, because this basically was a chamber that prepared P'Loiches. How many times did he prepare P'Loiches? So they say they actually they never heard of a Lishka P'Loiches, and they don't know where it is. But the Mishnah says one of them was guarding the Lishka P'Loiches. Maybe it's one of the other chambers that was used for something else as well. The Echad Achoya Beis HaKapodes, one of them was guarding behind the Beis HaKapodes. What's the Beis HaKapodes? The Kodesh HaKadoshim. The Kodesh HaKadoshim is not called the Beis Olain, the house that houses the Olain HaKodesh, because the main part of the Olain Kodesh was the Kapodes. It says that the Eibusher revealed himself to the Yidden mibein shnei akuvim al HaKapodes. Yeah, so therefore it was called Beis HaKapodes. So behind the Beis Hamikdash, behind the Kodesh HaKadoshim, that a guard. So now we have exactly 21 guards.